How you doing? How you doing, everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know everyone is probably still recovering over the last couple of days. A lot of action in the last couple of days, and I've been talking over, the last few games here in the championship series where it felt like there was a lack of juice in this postseason, and all of a sudden we got a couple of game sevens and that energy picked right back up, and that's what postseason baseball is all about. It was awesome to see the game sevens. Great game 7 between the Phillies and the Diamondbacks. That, to me, that's the type of postseason baseball that needs to be on. Those close games, tight games all the way until the end. And we had a shocker, an absolute shocker with the Diamondbacks. Listen, Diamondbacks are an incredibly fun story, but I am honestly just shocked. I really thought in my opinion, the Phillies felt inevitable to me. They felt like they were just going to get there. And they just, out of all the teams remaining, they felt like the favorite to me out of the 4 teams that were remaining in the championship series. And I can't believe they lost. I know I've said that like a million times, but all the credit to the Diamondbacks. They had just a fantastic comeback in that series in almost every aspect. They came back not just in the series, but they had come from behind wins in games. It was just a great performance on their end. Just a gritty team. And that's going to be a tough team to beat in this World Series, in my opinion, going up against a hellacious offense with the Texas Rangers. These bats are no joke with the Texas Rangers, and they also have some pretty good pitching as well. The Diamondbacks, I think, are going to be a tough matchup. I think we're in store for a really good World Series. I think it could be one of those under-the-radar World Series that you look back on years from now and you go, wow, that was actually a really good series. Go back to 2001. That Diamondbacks team, sure, they had Johnson, they had Schilling. You did have some great talent on that team, but they were in their 4th year of existence going up against a Yankee team that was going for their 4th straight World Series, and that Diamondbacks team just completely proved everyone wrong, and they just shocked the world. And here they are again going up against a very good team in the Texas Rangers. Could they shock the world yet again? We'll have to find out. But we're going to preview this tonight. We're going to break down the offense. We're going to look at the pitching. We're even going to look at the managers. We're going to look at some X factors here tonight. We're just going to kind of break this down and just have some fun with it. I got a super chat coming in from Sean. How you doing? $4.99 super chat. A lot of people upset about the playoff format. People apparently are just now realizing that to go to the World Series, you have to win games. Go Rangers. Yeah, say what you will about the playoff format, but at the end of the day, the good teams win. Sure, could you say something about the layoff, between the wild card round and the division round? Sure, you could look into it, but at the end of the day, the winning teams, they find a way to win. That sounds as simple as that sounds, right? We saw the Astros. They were 1 win away from a World Series. They had that layoff. Hey, sure, they fell short of going to another championship, but they figured it out. So to me, I think these teams, they just got to figure it out, in my opinion. You have to adjust, right? You have to adapt. So thank you for that super chat. I do appreciate that. Let's get into the preview here for tonight. But before I do get started, if you can, everyone, smash the absolute crap out of that like button. It really does help with the algorithm. I know I say that a lot, but really, it helps so much with the algorithm. I can't stress enough. Hit the bell notification. That way I go live every single time. We'll be doing post games here on the channel for each World Series game. We got the offseason coming up as well. Lots of news, lots of rumors going to be flying in. So even when the World Series is over, we're going to keep on going here on this channel. There is no rest for the weary. Share the show if you can. Share any of the other videos on the channel if you can. And if you are new, subscribe down below. We are sponsored here tonight by Underdog Fantasy. The link is in the description down below. Use the promo code HYDE. You get a double on your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy is your #1 stop for all of your daily fantasy needs, especially with the World Series coming up. We got basketball. We're right in the middle of football season as well. So go check out Underdog Fantasy. Again, link is in the description down below. Code is HYDE. So let's get to it, everyone. Let's get to it. And I'm actually not alone. I'm not alone here tonight. And hopefully this works. We do have a guest here tonight. And let's see if this works. Cross your fingers. Hold on a second. Let me get this pulled up here. Let's see if this works. How are we doing, Jim? How are we doing? Can you hear me?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank goodness this is working. Jim, how are we doing? This is the first time I am ever
Yep.
using the collab cam
Mm-hmm.
on Streamlabs. I use Streamlabs to stream, so if everyone's wondering what I use Streamlabs. And there is the StreamYard website out there, and I thought, you know what? I really want to stick to my setup if I can, and they have this collab cam, and hey, it's working. And I got to say, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it. How you doing, Jim? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I am fully expecting to buffer and lag out of here at any moment, but if not, we're going to have a great conversation about what is going to be a World Series that, I think, I talked about it earlier on my stream that this was an unexpected World Series. A lot of Braves fans, Dodgers fans, Phillies fans, Houston fans, all disappointed that they did not make it. And those, in many instances, those are the larger markets.
Yeah.
We don't have any New York team involved. We didn't have any New York teams involved in any of it. So I think this could be cool that we have two teams that are introducing some of their young stars to the rest of the baseball universe that maybe only locks in for the World Series. So a lot of people are going to get to know Gabby Moreno. They're going to get to know Evan Carter. That's going to be
lost, by the way.
Yes, it's. I know it might go down as one of the worst trades in Blue Jays history. But who knows? Maybe.
But now it just looks bad.
It looks really bad. Maybe Dalton Varsho. Maybe he can start hitting the ball hard. Give him another year. Maybe he starts hitting the ball hard. Yeah. It's a key component to being a successful baseball player is hitting the ball hard. I think there's some great stuff. And on top of it too, it also shows that you can win and get to the World Series two different ways. You don't have to spend a ton of money. You also don't have to go it on the cheap. Think about this. If we had, I'm happy Arizona's in, but if we had Arizona and Baltimore in the World Series, we would have owners with their hands up saying, this is why I don't spend money, because look at two bottom payrolls in the World Series. But we got Texas with a significant payroll. So they showed one way to do it. Arizona showed another way to do it. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things you said right there was about the young players. And really, when you think about it, there are so many young stars in this series. And I was saying last night on my post-game show where it just goes to show how impactful young players are today. I mean, if you look at the gap between college baseball, even high school, to the major leagues, that gap is lessening each year. These players in the high school levels, even, college levels, they're so advanced now. And you're seeing these guys move through the minor league system so quick, and they're playing in a World Series. I mean, look at all the young players. Evan Carter, Josh Young. You mentioned, Gabriel Moreno. So many of them. Corbin Carroll, obviously, a rookie this year. It's just crazy because I feel like we've never had this many young players in a World Series. Maybe we have. Maybe
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. The young talent is changing the game.
Yeah,
and it's great. That's great. This is becoming, and it's hurting players on the back end of their career because they're having a tough time finding jobs. So that's unfortunate. But it's becoming a young man's game, and that's good for the sport.
Yeah. And another thing, I want to get your thought on this as well. I had a great comment about this World Series, and to me, I loved this comment. It was just such like I saw it in the chat in the post game last night. It feels like the most calm World Series that we've had in a while, right? Because you think about it, we've had these Astros teams over the last few years, and there's always the controversy with the Astros. It's always a love-hate with the Astros. There's no, none of these large market teams. Sure, Arizona is a pretty big market. Texas, sure, that's a good size market as well. But when you think of those upper echelon teams, you think of the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, right? You think of those top level teams. So that's why I just really love that comment. It was just it was a very calm World Series that you can just kind of sit back and enjoy. That's what I'm excited about. Sure, you like as much juice as possible, But I'm really excited for this World Series, to be completely honest with you. I think it could be, it's not the big, headline stealing teams, right? But I feel like it could be an all-time classic. What kind of a feel are you having for this series?
I think that this has all the possibility of being as good of a World Series as a Braves and just pick the two number one teams. If the two number one teams from this postseason got through, if Baltimore and Atlanta got through, would have been a great World Series on the field. And I think so will this. I don't think that we're going to see anything detracted from the fact that these are not teams. I mean, we haven't seen these teams in a World Series. The Diamondbacks, we haven't seen them in a long time. So I think that could be, again, I think it's great to introduce these teams and these young players to a brand new crowd. They're going to get to know players. It's not guys that they've seen before. They've seen Jose Altuve. They've seen Kyle Tucker. They have seen Bryce Harper. They're going to get to know a whole new group of kids that are really good and they're really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, let's dive into it here. Let's dive in. I'm going to go. Basically, I'm going to start with the managers. Then we'll talk about the offense. We'll get to the pitching, and talk about some key players that we think could be really rather important for the series, as well as maybe some X factors that could emerge and maybe shift the tide of the series either way. Yeah. So let's kind of start with the managers here. And, I think we got to start with Bruce Bochy, of course. Bruce Bochy, guy's an absolute legend. When you think of Bruce Bochy, you think of just World Series championships with the Giants, 3 with the Giants. Remember, he went with the Padres years back. And this is obviously his first season with the Rangers and first World Series. Bruce Bochy, absolute legend here. What are your thoughts on just Bochy this year and what he's done for this Rangers team?
Bochy right now, I think when you're a manager in baseball, I think get through 162 games and managers are going to make mistakes but the pressure's on right now. Yeah. And you can't make mistakes. And you need a guy that has experience going through these situations, going through the ringer of going all the way. And having that experience, his comfort level, his ability to feel confident in those moments, and then let that vibe spread throughout the rest of the clubhouse, the culture that creates, that breeds, I think is huge. Torey Lovullo's going through this for the very first time. He may make a couple of rookie mistakes, and to this point, he's done a very good job. But I think Bochy, the experience is there. The players still got to play, right? They still got to go out there and execute, make pitches, come up with hits, not make errors in the field. They still have to do their thing. But when the guy pulling the lever knows when to pull the lever and knows what the right lever is to pull at the right moment in the postseason, when each decision is, the pressure is magnified by infinity. Yep. I think that having Bruce Bochy is huge.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I feel like we've seen it a lot actually over the last few years. When you see these guys, they've come in and they've stepped in, their first season with the team. It actually feels like it seems to work a lot when you're not just Bruce Bochy himself, but just having that fresh face, a new voice, right? We saw it with Cora back in 2018 with my Red Sox. Excuse my giraffe neck Robbie. But we saw, sure, the Mets fell short last year, but you saw Buck Showalter come in, and just give a new voice to the team. So it's with the Rangers, they're not just getting that new voice, but they're getting that guy that has been to multiple World Series and done it with teams. Go back to the 2014 Giants team. Without Bumgarner, who knows what that team is? Who knows if that team even makes the postseason that year? So, with Bochy, what I like about him is that he has an appreciation for the analytics you need to in this day and age, but he just also has that feel as well. And I love that. Right. I think the relationship with him and Chris Young and just everyone in the front office, I think that really has gone a long way because Chris Young this is a guy that obviously played, during the time where Bochy was managing. So I think they both have that balanced approach. So, and I think that's just been so key. Sure, you can look at Bochy as, a huge key for this Rangers team, but I simply just think the collaboration between Bochy and Chris Young has been massive for the Rangers this year. I think just when everything is clicking at the top, it trickles down, and everyone is just a cohesive unit. Sure, the Rangers ran into some trouble, but Bochy, he kept his team calm, and in the end, they made the playoffs, and here they are in the World Series. And Torey Lovullo, like you mentioned, this is, first year. He's done a good job at just keeping this team on track. The Diamondbacks, just like the Rangers, they hit a rough spot during the regular season as well. And, sure, 84 wins this year. But in the end, he's just been clicking the right buttons. And you got to give him a lot of credit, just how he navigated through that championship series where, especially with how he handled the bullpen. The bullpen was massive in that series with the Phillies. It was so good. And to me, I think it's obviously the performance of the pitchers are obviously key, but I think it's also putting the right guy in at the right time, right? Knowing when to go with a lefty-righty matchup or when to go with a certain guy, looking at scouting reports. I give Lovullo a lot of credit for the way he handled this bullpen. So, I'm guessing, though, with you, I would imagine maybe Bochy has the edge when it comes to the managers. Yeah. What do you think?
I think so. I think that who do I trust to keep the troops calm when it's going sideways? I think they both would do a good job, but Bochy's gonna have a way. Like if they're down 2-0, Bochy's just gonna walk into the office. He's gonna be like, "The hell's wrong with you guys? Relax." Like Bochy is gonna keep a steady heartbeat. That can be big. That'll keep your guys from getting too tight, too tense, I think, and that obviously works with this group. So, yeah, and who do I trust to not make a key mistake? Listen, they're both good. They're both fine managers, but I trust Bochy to be less likely to make that mistake.
Well, give Bochy a lot of credit, too. Sure, the bullpen did cough up a little bit at times in that series against the Astros, but, the fact that Bochy, there was a couple of times where he went to Leclerc, for, a 4 or 5 out, outing, not going to Chapman. The lack of going to Chapman in certain spots where Chapman was warming up and he just didn't go to him, I think was also very good on his part. That just shows, and pulling Chapman too, pulling Scherzer in Game 7 as quick as he did instead of just leaving him out there trying to just stretch out a couple more outs. I think that was massive. It just seemed like with Bochy, he felt like when the momentum felt like it was starting to shift, he kind of beat it to the punch, right? And that was what I got with Bochy when it came to handling the bullpen and taking pitchers in and out. So yeah, for me, Bochy has the edge, but I think Lovullo, he can end up managing a pretty good series as well.
The quick on the bullpen. Yeah. I think that there is definitely something about this Rangers bullpen that is scary in a bad way. If you think about the last couple of World Series champions we've had, the Astros, the Braves, they sort of won the World Series on the backs of their bullpens. The Rangers don't have a bullpen like that. The Rangers really only have one or two. Spores is probably pitching the best out of anybody in that bullpen. They're going to need some guys to step up. There's going to be an opportunity for Bruce Bochy to look really bad. Even though he went to the right guy, that guy might implode. They don't have a big enough circle of trust in that bullpen, and I think that could hurt them, but we'll see. I just want to throw that in there because there's going to be an opportunity for Bochy, for that bullpen to make Bochy look bad.
Yeah, there's definitely some candidates that could step up. We'll get to the bullpen here in just a little bit, but at least they have a guy with Bochy. Seems to have a good idea of who to go with. So that's definitely an advantage that Bochy has. Who knows? Maybe this could be a pretty even matchup. We'll have to wait and see. But let's talk about the offenses. I think we got to start here with the Texas Rangers. When you think Rangers, you think offense. And, who else to start with other than Adolis Garcia? This guy was insane. I know he's kind of the talk of the town, putting the ear up to the crowd, to the Astros. I hope the Diamondbacks don't start booing this guy. I hope they know.
Right.
It's kind of like the Astros where, don't chant, "We want Houston." Every time people chanted, "We wanted Houston," it backfired, right? So do not boo Adolis Garcia. That is a bad move. If anything, they should take the newspapers out, right? And they should, read the newspaper and don't even acknowledge him. Don't even give him that attention because he thrives on it. But what a series!
Yeah, just pick up your phone. Play with your phone when he comes up. Don't do anything.
Literally. Honestly, I can honestly see the Diamondbacks maybe pushing something like that because they seem to have like that social media presence a little bit where they have fun out there. But with Adolis Garcia, what a massive series he had. Hit 481, a 1.309 OPS, the 5 homers, a record 15 RBIs in a series. I mean, holy cow. Like that, sure, I know, that game 7, they were kind of adding on a little bit. There were a couple of spots where they already just had a big lead. And, go back to game 6 as well. They were up by a couple, and then he added on the grand slam there. But can you think of a series that was just like that in a championship series? I mean, holy cow. Just what did you think of Adolis Garcia there?
It was incredible. And what I think about is I almost think about the flip side. Think about what Adolis Garcia did and think about what Kyle Tucker didn't do. Now, you've got in the Texas Rangers, Adolis Garcia went crazy, but then also Seager had a fine series. Josh Young had a big game. They lost that game, but you had Evan Carter with a nice series. Really, it was Marcus Semien who seemed to be the one that was kind of dragging behind everybody else.
Yeah.
So when everybody else is still contributing, and Adolis Garcia then goes and does that, that makes Garcia's performance even more so impressive because, 15 RBIs. That means your teammates had to be on base for you. Yeah. That was a problem that Yordan Alvarez had for Houston, is that his teammates were not getting on base for him. Yeah. And he now a couple times he did come up with runners on, and but it wasn't the same feel because there were too many Houston bats that didn't show up to the series. So Garcia's performance is definitely the talking point, but it doesn't happen if the lineup isn't supporting him. If the guys around, the guys ahead of him aren't getting on and the guys behind them aren't dangerous. Houston didn't have that same advantage because there were too many guys dipping in and out or completely didn't show up for the series.
Yeah, watching that series, when you think of just the feel factor, the eye test, it seemed like the Rangers, they just seemed a little bit more loose, right? I'm not even just going by, the performances of some of these guys. I'm just looking at the at-bats. They just seemed like a more confident bunch up there. Even I felt like they were making productive outs. They were being aggressive in certain counts. They were being patient in certain counts. They just felt really comfortable in that series. Despite it going to a game 7, the Rangers just had a different feel about them in that series. While it felt like the Astros, there were many times where they just couldn't capitalize on certain instances, like runners on, like so many times they just couldn't come through.
Robbie, they had 4 hits.
Had those big moments. So
Robbie, they had 4 hits with runners in scoring position in 4 games at home in the postseason.
There's so many times where I remember just doing my post game notes, and I'm watching these games, and I'm like, God, they're just leaving runners on. But then when I go to do get my notes together, I'm like, wow, they really did leave this many on. Like, it's crazy. So. But the Rangers, they don't seem to have an issue with this. Even with Seager, what I liked about Seager, he hit 258 over the series and 819 OPS, a couple of homers, and he got the game 7 started. But even with him, sure, maybe the numbers didn't look great, but he still was aggressive up there, swinging at a lot of first or second pitches, really going after. He's, didn't seem like he was really out of rhythm with anything. He just wasn't getting the results. There were definitely some hard hit balls, a lot from him that turned into outs. So I'm expecting a pretty good series from Corey Seager. We all know what this guy can do in a postseason. So
yes,
I don't think people realize how good Corey Seager is in the postseason. He's done it before. I'm expecting a big series. And then you got some of these other guys who had some good series against the Astros, like Mitch Garver was stepping up for them. Even Lowe, came up with a couple of homers. Heim had a couple of spots there. You had Garver and then Heim in going blank. What was it, game 5? Where they had was it game 5 or game 6? I can't remember.
I want
They
to
each had a couple of homers there.
say that was game 6.
Yeah. Okay,
I want to say that was 6.
Yeah. And, they just had all these guys. And then, of course, Evan Carter, the young guy, I feel like he's not having the impact that he was having in the early going where he was just, it felt like you couldn't stop the guy. But, the guy he's running the bases really well out there. He showed some good defense against Houston there. So he's still a very productive player for them. And, there's just danger all over this lineup. You mentioned Josh Young as well. Just feels like everyone besides Semien is really clicking. So I'll get back to Semien here in just a little bit. But let's get to the Diamondbacks here. Funny enough with the Diamondbacks, here they are in the World Series, but this Diamondbacks team wasn't amazing offensively with the numbers, right? The big thing that I took away from the Diamondbacks was the timely hitting, right? Just coming up in the big spots. Marte with the walk-off. You had the Alec Thomas big-time home run there to end up tying the series. The back-to-back homers to get it started in Game 6, right? They just took advantage where they saw the opportunities. They weren't, getting all the runs across the board. They got outscored in that series 30-21, and still won the series. So, of course, that was one of the games where the Phillies just blew them out. But just overall, what I really liked about the Diamondbacks is maybe they didn't score all the runs in the world, but they were just hard to really put away, and they were just putting pressure on a lot, taking just good at bats. This Diamondbacks team, to me, I really like how I'd say tenacious is the word, where they don't go down, and they just make it really difficult for you. And they just have all these different guys that can do different things, right? So it just feels like there's a threat everywhere, even though it might not be as magnifying as the Rangers, where it feels like they just got big bats all over the place. The Diamondbacks bats are just tough. And so to me, they might not be on that same tier as the Rangers, but I still think this Diamondbacks team, they can hold their own offensively. How are you feeling?
They've got to show what they showed in games 5 and 6.
Yeah.
I'm not 5 and 6, 6 and 7.
6, yeah.
Where Ketel Marte finally got some help and Gabby Moreno finally got some help. Where those were the two that you felt comfortable with pretty much throughout the series. You were wondering where Tommy Pham was. You were wondering when's Gurriel going to come up with a big hit. You were wondering when Corbin Carroll's going to break out. All those things. Christian Walker, you were waiting for that. Never got that from Walker. Maybe that'll happen in the World Series. So it felt like this team this is crazy, got past the Phillies with one arm behind their back because so many guys didn't show up. And when they did, it was late in the series. It was one of those, finally. That was one of my big takeaways from Game 6 was, okay, are the Diamondback bats back? Because Pham had the homer, Gurriel had the homer, Corbin Carroll scored a run, got a hit. These were all good signs, and then it continued into Game 7. And then the other thing that they were doing was they were running. This team unlocked during this series, during the 7 games, the Arizona Diamondbacks went to 2 different levels during the series. When they fell down 0-2, they went into this backs against the wall mode, and that was across the board. That was the bats, that was the pitching, that was everybody. They all collectively went to a scrapping and clawing to stay alive, backs against the wall. They did that, and then when they went to Philly, they unlocked a new level. I feel like they continued to play with that same intensity and that same focus, and they went to, we're going to light the bases on fire, and we're going to start running. And because they did that so much during the season, and that's one of the reasons why they were even in the postseason at all, was because of the aggressiveness on the bases and the runs that you can create, turning a walk into a double, right? Adding all that extra pressure onto the pitcher, so he can't be comfortable throwing the pitch. So if they do that to these Texas pitchers, that's going to be important because, slugfest, that favors Texas 10 times out of 10 if we get into a slugfest. Not that Arizona can't keep up. I would just favor Texas. So Arizona's got to do everything we just talked about. Play like there's no tomorrow. Run like hell. And you need to continue that momentum that you got from Corbin Carroll, from Gurriel, from Perdomo, from Pham that you started to see late in the series.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the base running too, because with the Diamondbacks, they're actually a very good base running team this year. They were 6th in base running on Fangraphs this year, while Texas, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. They were 25th in base running.
Right.
So I do wonder
not their game.
if maybe that comes into play. We'll have to wait and see. But that was definitely something with the Diamondbacks that I noticed in that series was even if they just got a runner on, it felt like there was a chance they could get that guy home. Right? They took advantage of the base runners that they had, and they just made them count. So even though maybe they weren't just wrecking the ball and getting extra base hits and whatnot all over the place, they just made their runners count, and they just made it tough for the Phillies pitchers. We did see some good Philly pitching there, but I'm still processing it. I am still processing it. I mean, I forgot to ask you that. Like, are you still as shocked as I don't know. Like, I'm stunned. The Phillies are not in this. I no disrespect to the Diamondbacks. I think they absolutely earned it and then some. I'm just like, wow. Like,
no, yeah,
still
me too.
Processing.
I'm very surprised. I thought that when Arizona went down 0-2 after they had fired the Gallen and Kelly bullets and were down 0-2 with Brandon Pfaadt lining up, and then a bullpen day is what we knew was coming for game 4. It was like, no way. Like, Philly's going to get one of those 2 games, maybe both of them, and this thing could be over in 5. But again, Brandon Pfaadt has become somebody that you can trust. And look, they won a series that they lost both of the games that their ace started. They went 0-2 in the Zach Gallen starts. That makes no sense. The fact that they are here is great, but if you were to look at everything that was playing out, you'd be like, no, there's no way. There's no way. This thing's over. No way. I said it was over after they were down 0-2, but I also said that in game 3, you got to slam the door. You got to shut. You cannot let them in, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, like if you remember our pre-series stream where we talked about this, I remember saying the Phillies better not take this team lightly. And I remember saying to you, because the Phillies, they're looking at a reflection of themselves from the prior year, because this is a Diamondbacks team that just got into the playoffs, right? They had some good talent on this team. There was a lot to like about this team. And look what ended up happening. I think the Phillies, it might be a very generic statement, but it almost feels like the Phillies just got a little confident or a little overconfident. I don't know. Maybe it might be just a very generic statement, but
they blew it. They blew it is what they did.
I don't want to take anything away from Arizona, because they earned it. Like, holy cow, they earned it. They had to really fight for it. It just, I don't know what it is. Like, it just feels like Philly all of a sudden just shut off. They felt inevitable. They just felt like a team that should be here. And
here's what we learned.
Yeah, but hey, good for the ratings. Good for the reactions. That definitely helped us with our streams. So
we learned that Merrill Kelly's a gamer.
Yes,
Merrill Kelly does not give an F what you think if you are on the other side of the fan base. No, Merrill Kelly is strong in here, and that's what I'm always trying to find that stuff. Like, are you strong between the ears? Because that can take your game up. That's like unlocking a power up. You're playing Mario, you hit the block and you get the mushroom and you double in size. When you're strong in here, it's almost like you're doubling in size. We learned that about Merrill Kelly. We learned Brandon Pfaadt is better than his record coming into this thing. It's better than he had pitched for the majority of the season. 16. Robbie, this is partly on Philly too, but Brandon Pfaadt earned this. 16 swings and misses in 4 innings on Brandon Pfaadt.
Pfaadt's nasty.
In game 7. He's nasty. He had that, the sweeper was moving. I also liked how Brandon Pfaadt changed his pitch mix up from game 3 to game 7. So, like, he's just masterminding this thing. I mean, again, all the credit. He could have gone out there and said, what I did in game 3, I'm going to do again. He could have been leaning more on the fastball. And I think that's what Philly might have been looking for, because Brandon Pfaadt during the season threw the fastball 48% of the time in his outings. He didn't do that in game 7. He went out there and he was leaning heavier on the sweeper. And I think Philly was looking for the fastball and they didn't get it.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of adjustments, when it came to the starting pitching with Arizona, but also with Texas. Look at Nathan Eovaldi. Like he absolutely made some adjustments, even though he did well in his first start. He made adjustments in that next start. And I think that is a big key. So I think this is a good segue here. I think we can kind of just move into the starting pitching here. Overall, though, before I do move on to that fully, I personally have to give the edge to the offense for the Rangers. I'm not sure what you're thinking. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I think it's with the bats, but I think the Diamondbacks, I like their offense. I do. I think they do the small things really well. I think they do those things that you don't really see on the stat sheet, and I think that is important. So either way, yes, I give the bats the edge, but I like the overall offensive game with the Diamondbacks too. So, but yeah, bats for me for the Rangers. When it comes to the starting pitching with the Rangers, I just mentioned Nathan Eovaldi, Nasty Nate. I had the absolute pleasure of watching Nathan Eovaldi in the playoff run in 2018. He showed what he could do there, and he's showing it again. Nathan Eovaldi's having an amazing postseason. He's 4-0, 26 innings pitched, a 2.42 ERA. Montgomery is also really good. He's appeared in 5 games, 2.16 ERA over the 25 innings. So you got a great 1-2 with the Rangers. That's going to be hard to beat. And with the Diamondbacks, we just mentioned Merrill Kelly. We got Zach Gallen. Got Brandon Pfaadt as well. Right now, I am personally I'm not sure what's happening with Zach Gallen. He just doesn't seem as crisp to me. Like there's just something not quite there. Looking at the spin rates in his last start, they just weren't as good. And that to me shows that the ball's just not quite coming out of his hand very well to me. And I'm wondering if there's just a slight lack of a feel right now for him. So I think those in-between game bullpens are going to be huge for him. And we'll have to see how he goes. And then, like you said, with Merrill Kelly, coming into the postseason, I was saying, I look, where's my clown nose? I don't know where it is. I'm going to have to get a clown nose. I need to wear that a lot. But I said with Merrill Kelly, to me, the stuff I wasn't a big fan of in postseason baseball. I'm a big fan of swing and miss kind of stuff in the postseason, but he doesn't care. Like you said, he doesn't care. And with Kelly, he just goes out there and he pitches. And he, just pitches great. Every single time it feels like, he didn't have the most impressive stat line, but he came up so big in game 6. Nola struggled there and he just was great. 5 innings, 8 strikeouts there. So we know what he can do. I'm actually more confident in Kelly at this point than Gallen. And I love what Brandon Pfaadt is doing. I think I think they are taking the right approach. Whereas before, when he got pulled early in that start, everyone was just up in arms. Like, why are you taking him out? He's doing great. He took him out, felt so soon. But it is working, right? So with him, it seems like Lovello, they have a good feel for him right now. And I think he's just building more confidence as he goes. I'm very interested to see, the Phillies offense was good, right? Phillies had a great, this Rangers offense though, it is on, I think, a slightly higher level than the Phillies. The Phillies definitely could do some damage. Absolutely they could. But there's something about these Rangers bats, and I'm very curious to see how he does against some of these bats. Like when you got guys like Seager and then what Garcia did in that last series. I'm very, very curious with him. And then on the Rangers side of things, the other guy that, I'm a little concerned about is Max Scherzer. I think that's very easy to point to him. At this point, it's kind of like you just kind of take what he gives you, right? He went the 2 2/3 in game 7. That's exactly what I said the Rangers need to do. You need to have a short leash with him. He's getting some pitches under his belt, and I do wonder if maybe he can be something in this series because at the end of the day, he is working his way back. But it just feels like at this point, Scherzer is going to be like a 4-inning kind of a guy, like tops 5, hopefully. I think if you get 5 out of Scherzer at this point, I think that's a huge win. For me personally, I have to lean Rangers with the starting pitching right now, just because I just love what Montgomery and Eovaldi are doing. And even with Scherzer on the mound in Game 7, they still figured it out. And, that's where I lean starting pitching with the Rangers right now. What about you?
I lean Diamondbacks.
Ooh,
I like what I've been going on this whole postseason is trust factor. If you go out there 10 times, how many times do I trust you out of those 10 starts to go out there and give me a chance to win? And I believe that the Diamondbacks, even though they only have 3 starters, I believe they have more starters that
they do
give you a chance to win.
Yes.
And that's the situation. That's what could hurt Texas, because the way this series is going to start, you're going to have to see Andrew Heaney in Game 4.
Yeah.
And Andrew Heaney does not have good numbers against Ketel Marte and Christian Walker lifetime. They each have a pair of home runs off of him. So Andrew Heaney could get blown up in Game 4. You're going to have Max Scherzer go in Game 3. If you are figuring to have Heaney go in Game 4, that may mean you have John Gray lined up to give some innings after Scherzer has to come out in the 4th inning. John Gray has horrible numbers against these Diamondbacks bats from his days in Colorado. So no, I don't want any. So that's what I'm worried about as far as the Rangers and with Scherzer and with Heaney and with Gray and how they all fit in. And the Diamondbacks for Gallen. Here's what's interesting is I went back and I looked at the matchups this season. That they played 4 times. The Diamondbacks won 3 of the 4.
Yes.
And it just so happened to be that Zach Gallen lined up for 2 of those 4 starts. One of those outings, now again, this was August. He went 6 innings, 1 run, struck out 11. Okay, this is August. That may have lined up to the Rangers' August swoon for all I know. And then you had a start earlier in the year, I believe it was in May, where he pitched well up until it was the 5th or the 6th inning. It got a little rocky. He gave up some runs. So he pitched about 11 or 12 innings against the Rangers this year. And except for 1 inning at the end of his first start, did well against this Texas Ranger team. So he's got a little bit of confidence that he can go out there with. He can feel like he could do that. And this is the other thing. This Diamondbacks team obviously figured out how to use the Philadelphia Phillies' aggressiveness against them. And I wonder if we see the Diamondbacks do the same to the Rangers. Now, maybe the Rangers won't chase out of the zone as much, but and they have a lot of guys that do that less than the Philly bats do. But that will be interesting to me. So I give the slight advantage, and it's because Max Scherzer is a big question mark. I give the slight advantage from a rotation standpoint to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you on a lot of those points. I absolutely agree with the depth point of view. Right now, I feel better with the 1-2 with the Rangers when you look at both, but I feel better with what the Diamondbacks can do over a long series, if that makes any sense. And we just saw.
Yes. Yeah.
Listen, I like Eovaldi and I like Montgomery, but I also liked Wheeler and Nola as well. Those 2 were pitching great this postseason, and the Diamondbacks down 2-0 figured it out against 2 guys that had been just carrying that rotation, in that postseason. So I think you could argue Wheeler and Nola, that 1-2 punch is better than Eovaldi and Montgomery. Nola ended up, slipping up there in Game 6 while Eovaldi did not. But we've seen that the Diamondbacks, they can hold their own, right? And they can figure it out. So
this is the thing, right? If you have 2 guys that you feel confident are going to go out there and give you a chance to win, that's 4 games. You better win all 4 of those games. If you have 3 guys in your rotation that you feel good about giving you a good start, that's 6 games of coverage.
Yeah.
So that's 1 game, and it'll be Game 4 that Arizona's going to have to throw their bullpen day. They'll Frankenstein that thing together in Game 4. The Rangers are going to have to Frankenstein it together Games 3 and 4, and then again potentially Game 7. That's where Arizona holds an advantage.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. It's going to be, I think, just very interesting to see how it unfolds. And I think it's just going to be the little things. I think it's going to be the preparation, the scouting reports, how they attack those hitters, going after their weak points. Are they going to execute? That's what I think it's just going to come down to. I think the starting pitching is closer than what people might look at on the surface. I think they might see Evaldi, Montgomery. Oh, okay. They've been pitching way better than Gallen and Kelly overall. But I think it's the Diamondbacks. They just figure it out. You would like for Arizona to have like another option here, but I think the fact that they have figured it out to this point, that to me gives me confidence in them. So, I think those are good points all the way across. But as for the bullpens, I do give the edge to Arizona. I think Arizona's bullpen right now, they're just clicking on all cylinders. And I like that they have not just a lot of different options, but they have options where they're coming at you with all these different angles, right? You're looking at guys like Ryan Thompson and Sal Frank, like those are guys that are really just coming at you from different angles, different arm slots, lefty, righty as well. Ginkel, all of a sudden, has just turned into a star. I've always liked Kevin Ginkel. This is a guy I remember a couple of years ago. I was a fan of Kevin Ginkel, and then he just kind of ended up not doing well over a stretch, over the last couple of years. But this year he's just really gotten it together, and he's been just fun. And, and I'm glad he got his moment in this postseason, because he has been good this year. He had a very solid season, in my opinion. So, and then obviously Seawald is proving at this point to be, let's see who wins this World Series, because they've both of these teams have key additions from the trade deadline. Montgomery for the Rangers, Seawald for the Diamondbacks. So I think that's really interesting in itself. But Seawald has proven to just be such a good pickup for Arizona. Yes. I'm leaning Diamondbacks bullpen. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm the same way. This Rangers team, I was talking about it earlier. I think this Rangers team could make Bruce Bochy look bad. I talk ad nauseum about the circle of trust. How big is your circle of trust? Who are the guys that you throw out there that you feel are going to go out there and give you a solid inning? If somebody gets on, no big deal. He's my guy. How many guys do you have like that? And I think Arizona, while it is not a big group, I think they have three. Seawald, Ginkel, and Thompson. Right? We've got 8 appearances from Seawald, no runs. 8 from Ginkel, no runs. Thompson, we've got 8. He's allowed 3 runs, but of his 8 appearances, 6 were good, 2 were bad. I worry about Sal Frank. He's walking a ton of guys that you don't know what's going to be a good outing, what's going to be a bad outing. Miguel Castro keeps going back and forth, good, bad, good, bad. So I don't know what we're going to get there. Mantiply's been giving up some runs. So, but compared to the Rangers literally, the circle of trust, they still trust Leclerc. They do. I don't know if I do. Leclerc's going out there and he's pitching a ton. He's been in 10 games. 10 games he's already pitched. And he's had some bad moments, but if you go out there 10 times, you're going to run into a bad moment or two. It's him and it's S'mores. Like, those are the only two. And S'mores is the one who's pitching the best right now. And because you can't trust Chapman.
Yep.
He's going to get you in trouble. You can't trust Smith. You can't trust Perez. They don't trust Stratton. There's literally, there's nobody to trust out of this bullpen outside of S'mores and kind of Leclerc. So the advantage has to go to Arizona, because if you're coming into a series with 3 guys that you feel good about, there's your 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. And you can piece together matchups. You can piece together, a rescue arm to get one guy out with the other guys. If you're Texas, you need Jordan Montgomery to go 7 or 8. You need Nate Eovaldi to go 7 or 8, because you don't have enough guys to have to pull them in the 5th and then get 4 innings out of what they've got. So the advantage 100% is Arizona here.
Yeah, and you made a good point about Leclerc too. And You could see, I felt like he was starting to get a little gassed in that because they had to lean on him a lot. Like you saw him earlier in the series, earlier in the postseason, looking just nails, right? A lot, very good on his, with his command, good velocity. He's had good velocity the whole postseason, but it was just something that looked a little different with him as the series progressed. Chapman, with Chapman, you can't count on him. Like you can't, and like if you at this point, you can really just bring him in for like an out or two. I feels like at this point, situational kind of stuff. Like you said, Spores felt like we saw a lot of him. But you're right. I think we saw Bradford a little bit at one point. It just doesn't feel like they have a whole lot of options. They're gonna have to utilize, guys like Gray, Dunning. I think they're gonna have to use these guys, a bit.
They will.
But
yes.
I think in the end, just Arizona. It's right now they're just clicking, and when you got these kind of options at the back end of the bullpen, Sewald and Ginkel alone, those are two guys that you can just, like you've used the word trust. Those are great guys, but they've been also using Salfrank and Thompson a lot, and they've even brought in Man Supply in, certain situations.
Yep.
And I just like that, like I said, they just come at you from a whole bunch of different kind of angles, different arm slots, different pitch repertoires. I think Arizona clearly, in my opinion, they got the bullpen right now. And if they can just pave the way, that's what I like about, sure, I like the 1-2 with the Rangers and the rotation more than the Diamondbacks right now, but I like the Diamondbacks. They can give you enough to get to the bullpen. So that's what I think. The Diamondbacks have the more complete pitching staff, looking at both the rotation and the bullpen. I think just they have the more, what's the word I'm looking for? They have more bridges, right, to connect. To finish the games, right? They have more paths to win the games when it comes to the pitching. And if the offense can just do enough, like we just saw, this is a powerhouse Phillies team with all the talent that they have. That was a team built for the postseason, right? We've seen so many times Dombrowski, put these kind of teams together, and they just got completely upended, right?
Think about your comment about Bridges. The Diamondbacks have 7 relief pitchers that have made 4 or more appearances in this postseason. The Texas Rangers have 3 that have made 4 or more appearances.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting how this all shakes up. And I think this Diamondbacks bullpen could be a huge X factor in this series. But speaking of X factors, let's segue into a couple other segments here before we start to wrap things up and get to our final predictions. Key players. For me, I'm going to go with a key offensive player and a key pitcher for each team. For the Rangers, for me, I'm going with Semien. I think Semien really needs to step up here. He is absolutely key for me. And I know they've had, plenty of offense even without him, but to me, I've seen many times in the past when you go series to series, sometimes, maybe guys go down a little bit, but you need, I think, Semien here to really get it going and really just show what he can do. Right? It's this guy who had a really good season for the Rangers this year, and he's just done nothing in this entire postseason. He's only hitting 192 with a 507 OPS. I mean, we got to get this going. To me, I think for the Rangers to keep this offense chugging along, Semien needs to wake up a little bit, just to kind of fill that gap, because you never know. Maybe Garcia, the Diamondbacks, they see the series that he just had. Maybe they attack him in a different way that the Phillies couldn't figure out. So who knows? Maybe Garcia ends up taking a step back at some point. Seager, who knows? Maybe they come at him with some different options. I think Semien is going to have to make those adjustments, right? Because this is going to be a different team, a different game plan. Someone needs to step up for them to just keep things going. And I think Semien is huge. On the pitching side of things, I got Max Scherzer. I think Scherzer, to me, when you're looking at the Diamondbacks, like we've mentioned, they have more depth for a 7-game series. I love Montgomery and Eovaldi, but I think with Scherzer, he needs to give you more, right? You can't just be pushing Scherzer out there and praying he gives you 2 or 3 innings. To me, if they can get 5 out of him, right? I'm guessing he'll end up starting game 3. if they can get 5, especially because, like we've mentioned, the bullpen lacks options, right? Sure, they got a couple of good ones that you can go to at the end of the game, but it just almost, they figured it out in game 7, but that was also, Montgomery in that spot, coming in after him eventually, and I just think with Scherzer, he's got to give you a little bit more, and he's a big key for me in this series with the Rangers. So who's your key hitter and key pitcher in this series for the Rangers?
You went with a Rangers bat. I'll go with the Diamondbacks bat. I actually think that the X factor is already there and has already made his presence felt, and that's Gabby Moreno. Mm-hmm. You think about this lineup, Lourdes Gurriel is a veteran. You've got Christian Walker. You've got Corbin Carroll. You've got Ketel Marte. They've got a lot of guys. The rookie in this scenario, and he has been just a bulldog behind the plate. I mean, He keeps getting hit and he goes back out there. And in today's game, the ability to have the pop time and the arm, you cannot have a better combination. The framing is not elite, but when you can get the extra pickoff throw to first base, when you can prevent them from even going, this Rangers team, you talked about earlier, they don't really run a lot. Gabby Moreno is going to snuff that out even more because of the pop time and because of his arm. So he's already been operating as the X factor this whole time, but I'll give you somebody that needs to do that. And it's crazy that, similar to you having Semien for the Rangers, but you're right. Simeon's been, was kind of not an important factor, and he needs to be. Good on the Arizona side. It's Walker. Walker needs to step up and get it going because there's probably going to be a couple of slugfests in here. There's going to be some high scoring games. And if the Diamondbacks want to have a chance to compete in that game, these guys got to turn it on. Walker has to turn it on. And he's the one now that really has it. He still drew a ton of walks, so he was getting on base. That's great. Got to start hitting the ball. Got to hit the ball in the field, between the lines, go be productive that way. So I like, again, I think Moreno's been doing the X Factor thing for weeks, but I think it is sort of becoming now where he's maybe beyond that. He's now an integral part of their chances. It's Christian Walker that's sort of taking on that X Factor role. From a pitching perspective, you went where I was going to go, and I'm thinking about pivoting and going with Fott, but I'm going to stick with Max Scherzer with you. I'm going to stay right on that hill because just imagine what the Rangers, how this season, the series could play out if they can get 5 innings from Max Scherzer where he only allows 1 or 2 runs. That would be incredible. And then if this thing goes deep and you need to throw him out there again, a dependable inning, and he would maybe be starting the clinching game. So Max Scherzer feels like the guy that if he can step up, he adds so much. He takes that rotation from 2 guys that you trust to 3 guys that you trust, and that takes you from 4 games of coverage to 6 games of coverage with a starter that you feel is giving you a chance to win. So we agree on Max, and I'm going to go with Walker for Arizona.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the Gabby Moreno. I think he's definitely a huge X factor. And I'll get to my X factor picks in just a little bit. But with Moreno, I do think he is more vital in this series than you may think. Because earlier I mentioned the Rangers base running. They don't run the bases very well. And Moreno, he's already just going to lock it down out there. The Phillies were a pretty good base running team this year. And with Moreno, this is a guy who had just a really good year defensively. He had 20 defensive runs saved, but he also had 7 runs saved on the bases, right? So this guy can throw them out. Like you said, the framing, sure. Could that end up coming into play a little bit, especially with this Rangers team? Because there are really good bats here, and you're going to have to really try and squeeze out as much as you can against this Rangers offense. You got to be pretty much close to perfect against this Rangers offense. But I do like him. I think that is a huge advantage for the Diamondbacks because the Rangers are already just not a good base running team, right?
Yeah.
Well, Gabriel Moreno has done just very well behind the plate, so I think he can end up being huge. My key Diamondbacks players in this, you mentioned Christian Walker. Yeah, absolutely. Christian Walker is one of those guys. I think he could have that same series-to-series adjustment like Kyle Schwarber had, right? Schwarber had, not a great division series, but then woke up in the championship series. We both called that. And I think Walker has the same potential. Walker is kind of one of those guys where he brings that power, maybe not as much as a Schwarber, but Walker has that power impact bat. And I think with him, that could wake up here in this series. It's not very often where you see these power kind of bats sit down for too long. And I think Walker, he had a couple of hard hit balls in that series. And I think he's going to maybe do something here in this series. So I like him a lot. I think he's key, though, in this postseason. He's only hitting 200 he does have a 739 OPS, which he has had some moments. He had, a couple of moments earlier on in the postseason, but in the NLCS, he only went 2 for 22. So he's got to do a bit more here in the series, and I think he will. On the pitching side of things, I think the key pitcher for the Diamondbacks is Zach Gallen, honestly. Gallen, to me, I know that might be an easy pick. It might be kind of like a cop-out kind of a pick. But I think with Gallen, this is a guy, he's your game one guy. I think, to me, if he can set the tone, we've seen what the Diamondbacks can do down 2-0.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can get a 1-0 lead. If you can get a good start from Gallen, and then, we see that, someone like Fott can step up in game 3. And, you can the bullpen you can get that, those bridges built for the bullpen. But if you can get out to a 1-0 lead in this series with Gallen, that's huge. That's huge. Right?
Yep.
We know Kelly, he can go out there and do something. But I think Gallen's massive because you need your horses, right? And Gallen just hasn't done it yet. But I do think you could see, maybe some adjustments made. I hope he does, right? Because I would like to see him have a good start. We did see it against the Dodgers, right? Against some good bats with that Dodgers lineup. Sure, people will look at the layover, between the wild card round and the division round, and Dodgers bats went cold. But we did see a good performance out of Gallen there. So I think Gallen has the potential to be a key player here in this series, especially on the pitching side of things. And but any other X factors on your mind?
Well, for Arizona, the other element too, like just thinking of an offensive player that needs to step up, like Corbin Carroll, like Christian Walker, if he can step up, I think Christian Walker goes to a level where he is a healthy producer.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? I mean a guy that collects 8 hits, maybe 1 or 2 home runs, drives in 6 or 7 runs. But Corbin Carroll is a guy that in my mind could go to an Adolis Garcia level.
Yes.
And that could be massive, especially considering he had kind of a quiet LCS. The fact that the ceiling is so high for what Corbin Carroll could do, that would be huge for him to step up. And then Brandon Pfaadt, thinking about what would happen. Let's say Gallen doesn't get it going. He came up so big in the LCS because he stepped up. That if Gallen doesn't get it going, Fott's almost like a security blanket, a backup. And if Gallen does get it going, then Fott is there to just add more to the mixing bowl here to where you get to game 3 and either Gallen and Kelly gave you good starts and Fott's out there to give you a lead in the series, or maybe take this thing to an unthinkable place, a 3-0 spot. So where Fott will actually maybe line up in this series is, I think, makes him a crucial pitcher for the Diamondbacks, just because he'll be sort of at a swing game moment, or a series swinging moment when he takes the mound.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. But yeah, I completely agree with you when it comes to Walker, and Carroll as well. Carroll, what I think was big for him is he had a big game 7.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of those things where he can carry that momentum right? Because it felt like Carroll was almost pushing at times. You were seeing some high exit velocities from him in certain at-bats in that series against the Phillies. And you were kind of just waiting for him to do something. And he really just got it going, even on the bases too, right? He was the player that we all know he is, right? And he was doing it all. He was doing it with his legs, doing it with the bat. And I think Carroll has a big series. And another couple of guys that I think could be impactful. I'll go with one X factor for each team. I went with my key players for each team on the offense and pitching side of things. But I just went with a couple of X factor kind of players for both. When I think of X factor, the way I define X factor is someone you're not really thinking about and someone that can he can do something that you weren't really expecting, and a guy that can really contribute a lot to a series more than you were thinking he would. For me, with the Rangers, I think Nate Lowe can end up being pretty decent for them. Like, in the bottom of the order, we saw him, get the power going a little bit in that series. And I think he's a guy, when I look at Nate Lowe, I think he's a really underrated player, and he's really good for that bottom of the order for the Rangers. Right. We got the Bashers at the top, right? Yeah. But Lowe is just that steady kind of guy near the bottom of the order. And I think he can really help keep that. He just helps extend that lineup. And I think he can end up having a pretty decent series overall. And it seemed like he was hitting a little bit better towards the end of that series. And then with the Diamondbacks, I mean, is this really like an under the radar kind of a pick? But I do think the X factor is Fott. Just to me, it seems like he's just building more confidence as he goes. He went 4 innings in the last start against the Phillies. He went longer the prior start. But I think with Fott, the more he goes, I think the more confidence he builds. And I do think he is that X factor, because we already know games 1 and 2, right? But if he can really put together a game like he did, against the Phillies in his couple of starts, I think he is an absolute X factor. And it just seems like the more he throws, the more he gets comfortable out there. So those are my X factors for each team. Any other thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Fott. He is the 2 game 3, the 2 that are lined up for game 3 are really in that X factor position, Fott and Scherzer, because it'll be a series swinging moment. It'll either be even at 1 and someone's looking for the advantage, or someone's going to be up 2-0 looking to slam the door or stay alive. So that is going to just be a huge, that's an X factor game. That's an X factor's dream is the game 3. From an offensive perspective, I think Lowe can have such an impact, can have such a big series. And so there's definitely something to untap there. And Walker's just got to get it together, because he could play a major role here.
Yeah. And, one last thought for me, I'll just keep it short and simple. I just think the Diamondbacks bullpen overall, we just raved about it earlier, but I think they have a series changing kind of a bullpen where they can just turn the tides, completely. Yeah. So let's get to the fun part. Everyone's tired of us rambling. We're talking. We're just yapping. We're talking heads over here. They want to know the predictions. They want to know who's going to win. Let's get to it. You're the guest. Guest first. It's manners, of course, and I'm going to go with you. What do you? I don't know if you have your prediction yet. I don't know.
I do.
It's okay if you're even still thinking about it. But
no, I got it.
Where are you right now when it comes to this series? How you feeling? What are you thinking?
I think that despite the Diamondbacks having the edge with the bullpen, I'm here talking about how they've got the edge, having 3 guys to the Rangers 2. It's not really a wild card. It's sort of the dominant, demonstrative figure in this whole equation is that Texas lineup, those Ranger bats, and that could swing this thing. You get good starts from Montgomery and Evaldi, which I feel good about. And I feel good about Gallen and Kelly matching that.
Yeah.
But this could be something that I talked about it with the Blue Jays. When the Blue Jays went down, one of my biggest gripes is that the Blue Jays, it felt like they had 2 or 3 guys that could close their eyes and hit a home run and just run into one. Like, you're getting shut down. It's 1-0. It's the 6th inning. You need something. Basically, the Rangers lineup is that 1 through 9 right now. And Simeon needs to get going, but they have so many, it's the whole lineup that can just run into one and turn this thing upside down, turn a game completely around. The Rangers are also 8-0 on the road in this postseason. They've won the 3 games. Maybe it's 7-0. They have not lost. They're 7-0 or 8-0 on the road because they've won all 3 games the 4 games. It is 8-0. They won the 4 games in Houston, and they won the 2 games in the first 2 rounds when they were on the road. So the fact that a team that was 40-41 on the road during the regular season is 8-0 right now tells you where their mindset's at. I give a lot of that credit to Bruce Bochy. And they are a great team at home. So a team that is great at home, a team that had all year, a team that has been great on the road in the postseason. I think this is going to be the Rangers because they have the advantage of Bochy. They play great at home. The Houston thing, that was Houston. Houston, there's something there. It's like they're siblings or something. So I don't put too much into the fact that the Rangers lost all 3 games to Houston. I don't think Arizona can do that. I think Houston can do that. I don't think Arizona can. So you give me a team that's playing great on the road right now, a team that has been great at home throughout the season. The lineup is incredible. The advantage goes to the manager. I think the Rangers are going to wind up getting it done. How many games does it take? This feels like it could be a 5 or 6 game series.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I have been struggling with this all day because and the problem that I'm having is I don't know if my heart or if my brain wants to pick the Diamondbacks.
Right.
I think it's like 50-50 because it feels like I'm trying to find ways to justify the Diamondbacks, and I feel like when you try to find ways to justify a team, it ends up being the wrong pick. And I've made that mistake many times with predictions in the past.
You have PTSD.
I do have PTSD. It's when I try to just go against my gut, it never works. But at the same time, I'm just aggravating the viewers right now because they're just thinking, come on, just tell us who you want. But with the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, the Diamondbacks are one of those teams where, gosh, like they're really tough to pick against because they are that team that we just saw what they can do against a really talented team.
Mm-hmm.
But it just feels like my gut is saying Rangers, and I do think it's going to be the Rangers in 7. That's just, I feel like the Diamondbacks are going to be really difficult to put away.
Yeah.
They're going to make this a really tough series, and I think this could be a classic. I feel like I say that about every single series, every single time. Maybe that's just me trying to hype it up in my head. But I think this Diamondbacks team, I've been on their train for a couple of years. I predicted them to make the playoffs this year. I've been raving about them the last couple of years. They were my number 1 sleeper team this year. I did a video, 5 teams that could shock the world. Diamondbacks are number 1. It just feels like the Rangers here, they just got over such a huge hurdle with the Astros. Like, that is a massive hurdle to get over. Not just the team that's been winning championships, but your division rival, right? It almost feels like when the Rangers beat the Astros, it almost felt like when the Red Sox beat the Yankees back in 2004. Like, it's not going to be the same level, but it almost feels like that. The Red Sox got by the evil empire, right? They finally beat them. And not just the team that was winning championships and going to World Series left and right, but just also a team that was just killing them every year in the division, right? And breaking their hearts every single year. And it feels like the Rangers just did that with the Astros. They finally got over that hurdle. And I feel like at this point, sure, you can look at numbers, you can look at all that, But I think just the Rangers in the end find a way. And I know the bullpen looks a little bleak, but I trust Bochy to push the right buttons. Mm-hmm. I know this might be a cop-out. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, come on. What kind of an answer is this? I'm not going to count the Diamondbacks out. I will not be surprised if they find a way to win this thing. I won't. I know Rangers fans are going to get grumpy. They're going to get grumpy at me. I think the Diamondbacks can win this. I'm not counting them out because they have that bullpen that's really strong, and they just got over a hurdle themselves. I wonder with that Phillies team, that was an emotional win for them, right? That's huge. But when I saw the Diamondbacks really taking it in, it almost, because the one thing I noticed about the Diamondbacks when they won that series, they didn't go into like this huge celebration. If you notice that, they kind of like they celebrated.
Yeah.
But they still just, they were shaking hands like, all right, hey, good series. That kind of said something to me a little bit. And with the Rangers, they were almost celebrating like they had won a World Series. And I just noticed that slight difference with the Diamondbacks. And I know it was over 20 years ago, but everyone was picking the Yankees in 2001. Everyone was picking the Yankees. Everyone.
Yes, I remember.
No one picked the Diamondbacks. I mean, yeah, they had Schilling and Johnson, but this was the Yankees. In 2001, they were coming off 3 World Series championships. Everyone was going Yankees. With the lineup, Rivera, Clemens, like Pettit, El Duque. Like, that was a great Yankee team, right?
What's ironic?
The Yankees, they had the whole 9/11 thing, and it felt like they had that energy.
Right.
Like the Phillies, they had that same energy this year, right? Like at least when we got to October.
Yeah.
And then here are the Diamondbacks, just they don't care.
Yeah. I find it interesting.
My head says Rangers.
Yeah.
But my head is also saying Diamondbacks a little bit. I will go Rangers in 7.
Right.
But I think the Diamondbacks can win this in 7 too. Like they completely listen, and it's also kind of too. I said with my imaginary clown nose on, I said the Dodgers were sweeping the Diamondbacks. I got just, wow, that was a bad look, right?
Right.
But then after that, I said, no, I'm not going to take this team lightly, right? And they just showed what they could do. Mm-hmm. This is why I think it's going to be a great series, because this Rangers team is really good.
Yeah.
But this Diamondbacks team is really tough, and I love that. So, well, what is your response to that?
Well, what's interesting is that it's the Arizona Diamondbacks that back then won this thing off of the backs of a dominant righty and lefty starting pitching combination. And what do the Rangers have right now? They are sort of, now granted, Jordan Montgomery and Nate Eovaldi are not the caliber of Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, but one of the things that took those players to that mythical level was that postseason. And if the Rangers can finish the job and Nate Eovaldi and Jordan Montgomery each start 2 games in this series and they continue to do what they've done all postseason long, we'll look back at this postseason and this Rangers run and what Montgomery and Eovaldi did as something historic. I was saying in one of my streams that if the Rangers had bowed out in Game 7 to the Astros, that Rangers fans will always keep on the mantle the memories of Montgomery and Eovaldi in this postseason. If they win the World Series and those two keep doing their thing where it's shut down and win, Evaldi's 4 for 4. He's 4-0. If he's 5-0 or 6-0 at the end of this thing, and Montgomery, who's 3-0, he's 4-0 or 5-0, we'll be looking at what those two did as something historic. The entire baseball community will put it up on the mantle as one of the most historic combo performances by 2 aces at the top of a rotation. And it'll be ironic if that happens against the Diamondbacks, who won the World Series with Schilling and Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I miss those big names. I miss those big names in the postseason. We need those big names again. I will say this is completely unrelated, and I know we're getting to the offseason soon, but I think one thing to keep note of here is Jordan Montgomery in this series. I'm really excited to see how he does, because he is going to be a free agent. I wonder how much he can improve his stock. And I'm telling you, I'm just saying, I'm probably going to be wrong. But the Diamondbacks, they got a front row seat to Jordan Montgomery in this series. And I'm just saying, they could use another starter. And I wonder, maybe they're looking at Montgomery maybe as an option. Who knows? Montgomery's going to have it. Hopefully, have a start in Arizona. I'm just saying, I'd look out for Arizona on the market this year. I don't know. Maybe that could be an option. But either way, Montgomery, I'm excited to see what he does because this is a guy who's really busted out this year. You know, he's had good numbers in his career for the most part, but he's really just getting a chance to shine. And we saw Nola improving his stock in the playoffs. Unfortunately, that maybe dipped slightly in Game 6. But Montgomery, he just keeps on rising, man. And we'll have to see what he can do.
This is what happens.
For you, Jim? Any final thoughts?
I was going to say, this is what happens when you put yourself in a position like what Jordan Montgomery's in. He's in a playoff hunt. All eyes are on him. He's showing how he can perform under pressure. I go back to the trade deadline, and Eduardo Rodriguez said, no, I don't want to go to LA. I don't want to go and pitch for a team in the postseason. Jordan Montgomery leading up to the postseason was huge. If he's not with the Texas Rangers, they may not have made the playoffs at all. So he's got that feather in his cap, and now he's got this postseason run. You're 100% right. He has definitely increased his value. Nola brought his value back up after tanking it with a subpar regular season. Yep. Erod, on deadline day, when he said no to the Dodgers, he cost himself some money because he could have had an opportunity to showcase what he's got against the Diamondbacks in the postseason. And who knows, maybe LA wins a game or two, and that changes that series. And the Dodgers, the Dodgers are in the NLCS, and Erod is doing what Montgomery's doing. Eduardo Rodriguez, man, I get the whole family thing, but dude, it's like a business, it's like a work trip. It's a work trip. You're going to LA for a few months, Southern California. Hey, it's not that bad. Go make yourself some more money. Go show off in front of the league. Then go get Boston to bring you back for a ridiculous amount of money, or Baltimore to get John Angelos to open up his pocket. Yeah. Anyway, I will never forget that whole Erod thing. That's the Montgomery thing is just exacerbating it even more.
I remember during the trade deadline watch stream when that report came out, I just saw Jeff Passan, and I just quickly looked, saw Eduardo Rodriguez, trade, Dodgers, and I flipped out. I'm like, I literally said on this stream with like however many people were in there, like 2,000 people, like, everyone, Eduardo Rodriguez, he's been traded to the Dodgers. Yep. And then I'm like, wow, this is great for the Dodgers. I was like reacting so positively. And then I looked at the chat. Everyone's like, you moron. No, he rejected the trade. And I'm like, oh, oops. So that was a great moment. So.
It was that was a oddly worded tweet by Jeff Passan.
Because I looked at it so quick. Yeah. I was, oh my goodness. So this is. Yeah, I got to read. You know, I'm a teacher here. I should know better. I should know to read. But we're going to wrap this up, everyone. We're going to wrap this up. It's bedtime. I got to get to bed here. I got to wake up in the morning. But those are our thoughts on this upcoming World Series. I think it's going to be really fun. Yes. I think this could go either way. You know, honestly, if I really think about it, I think you could see I think it's either going to be, I'll either go Rangers. I don't know. I think there's so many different ways it can go. I think go Rangers 7, Diamondbacks 7. Could go Rangers 6. I do think if the Diamondbacks win this series, I think it will be in 7. I just think they're going to need every single game to win it. And before I do get out of here, we can actually look very quickly at the Zips. I'm already on it. At the Zips projections on Fangraphs. And they are giving the slight edge to the Texas Rangers. And it's funny because they gave the Phillies a slight edge. It was actually really close with the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. And I wonder, this is really close too. But the most likely outcome is they see the Rangers in 7 games. The next likely outcome is the Rangers in 6. Then the next one, funny enough, the next highest chance of where they think this series could go is the Diamondbacks in 5, where that has the 3rd highest chance out of all of these. And then it's Diamondbacks in 6 and then Diamondbacks in 7. So who knows?
Yeah.
Could you, how much of a shocker would that be? Is the Diamondbacks win it in 5 games? Are you kidding me?
That would surprise everybody. Yeah.
That would be,
no doubt.
Who knows? This season's weird. This has been just such a weird season. I don't know what to think. So,
by the way,
everyone,
when I'm looking down at the screen here on my thing, I don't know if you can see it on your monitor. Like, it looks like I'm looking down on your screen. The way you've got my box positioned and me looking down at where my laptop is, looks like I'm looking at your screen. Anyway,
that's why I put myself in the top corner. You got to get that little visual effect. So,
looks
like
we're looking at
this worked out, because this was the
me too.
first time doing the collab cam on Streamlabs. I was worried we couldn't figure it out when we first got on. Then I just had to hit one button and it worked. So hey, now I know that we could do more of streams this way, and I'm excited. So all right, everyone, if you can, on the way out, hit that like button for us. That really will help with the algorithm, especially for the people that weren't able to catch the show live tonight. Will be greatly appreciated. Smash the crap out of the like button. Hit the bell notification, everyone. Share the stream. Share any other content as well. And subscribe if you are new. And don't forget about our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, your #1 stop for all of your daily fantasy needs. The link is in the description down below. You get a double on your first deposit up to $100 if you use my code HYDE. We got the World Series coming up. You can do daily drafts. You can do pick'ems. You can do multiple ways to do it. And there's also football. There's basketball. We even got hockey as well. Lots of sports at the moment for you to use your expertise to try and win yourself some cash, but make sure you play responsibly, of course. So, everyone, I'm out of here. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight if you were live, and thank you if you watched this on the replay. Have yourself a great night. We will be live for all the post-game coverage. I do have a video coming up shortly in the next couple of days, so please keep an eye out for that as well. It is going to be the worst World Series champions of all time. So everyone, keep an eye out for that. Have yourself a great night, and I'll talk to you next time.